My Twitter feed is absolutely popping off right now with people talking about Framer. It's an incredible community success story. In just 1 year, they've built a cult following of designers, builders, and creators who talk about Framer, the product, how they're building incredible websites using it, but also, and perhaps more interestingly, how they're making money being part of the Framer community. The website building space is one of the most saturated out there. So how have Framer stood out? How have they catapulted themselves to success in such a short amount of time? Well, that's what we're going to be answering on this episode of the Community Lab. I got the chance to sit down with Kate Donnellan, who heads up the community building efforts at Framer, and we got the chance to really go into the details of how Framer have scaled using community-led growth. We go into the tactics and the strategies, and there's a ton of lessons in this episode that we can take to build our own communities. Pull out your notepad because you're going to want to take some notes on this one. One of the first things that Kate talked about was how important it was to understand the specific personas in the Framer community.
Underneath partnerships lives our affiliates, our template designers, and our freelancers and agencies.
This reminded me of Notion, who have a similar structure with 3 groups of students, creators, and corporate ambassadors. And I think it just points to how important it is for Framer to understand the persona type that they're serving, and we'll get to how they serve the different persona types later. At the same time, Kate also mentions that you can't just bucket everyone into one of these groups and expect to treat every individual within that group the same.
Honestly, my day consists mostly of just speaking to people, DMing with people, being on calls with people. I don't think there's one set way that you can activate those 3 groups. I think it's very specific to individuals. So it does take a lot of just speaking with people and getting an idea of the type of help that they need.
For early stage companies like Framer, you're not going to have a slick automated process to onboard every different type of community persona. It's a lot messier than that. You're still working out your community, you're still working out your product. And the most important thing is to actually just get down to the details, talk to the individuals, understand the problems that they're having, and then go from there. Okay, so you've got your persona types and you're doing the effort to understand the individuals within each of those types. But where do you go from there? How do you keep your community engaged? Well, this is something Framer are crystal clear on. They have one objective for their community that is more important than all the others.
And generally, our metric for success in there is our number of active partners. So the number of people who are actively making money through doing one of those 3 things with Framer.
This is something I think like 99% of communities don't understand, that if you can get your community making real money from your product, they're going to be 100 times more engaged. Notion realized this, Beehive realized this. We've got videos on both of those, by the way, that you're going to want to check out. And it's not just because the act of making money is motivating, it's because it unlocks time. If you can get your community to be able to prioritize you because they're making a living from it, and maybe even a full-time living one day, they're going to be able to put so much more resources into growing their brand, which in turn is going to grow your brand, because that's how communities work. Now, a lot of people that I've spoke to seem to think that Framer are leaving money on the table by building out their own creator economy. You know, why would you build out a community of people who are building products around your product when you could just do that yourself? You know, if you've got somebody selling templates on Framer, why would you not just, as Framer, make that template, sell it directly to the customer, and take 100% of the profits? I think Kate explains better than I could the advantages of building a community economy.
The basis of our relationship with template designers and with the builders is it's totally quid pro quo. What benefits them benefits us, as they help Framer to grow by bringing in new customers, either via building their sites or building templates for them to onboard.
The thing is, in the short term, it probably would bring more revenue to sell these templates directly and bypass the idea of the community economy. But in the long run, this is just very, very short-sighted. You know, in the long run, your community is your marketing arm. That means you don't have to put money into paid ads, into SEO or organic content, because your community are doing it for you. And this allows you to scale without having to raise tons of venture capital or sacrifice your profits to put into marketing, because your community is doing it for you. Just long term, it's such a better approach to do it this way. Okay, so maybe Kate and I have convinced you of the power of building a community economy, but how do you kickstart this? Well, I think Framer have done a really good job here in framing their product as a platform shift.
I think it's quite easy to forget that Framer Sites is still a relatively new tool. It's only been around for just over a year.
Wow.
And by them cementing themselves as an early adopter, an early leader, an early voice within this creator economy that we've got going on, they're really going to see their stature in the community skyrocket, and that's like the design community as a whole, not just the one that exists within Framer.
As an early stage community, you're actually at a huge advantage because the early members stand to gain so much more if you succeed. All the people now that are earning hundreds of thousands of dollars selling Notion templates started years and years ago, where Notion was in the early stage of the adoption cycle. And if you can sell that to your community that, look, you're in the innovator stage, now is where you put in the work to build up your brand. And then as our platform increases in usage, you're going to be able to reap the benefits. It's a very, very, very powerful argument for your community members. And that's exactly what Framer have done very well. The next lesson we can take from Framer is the importance of doing things that don't scale.
A big part of my job as well is not just working with the people and nurturing the people who already have kind of the loudest voices in the community. It's a lot of kind of identifying people who are trying to break in. You can see them making the effort of being active in the community, being active on Twitter, and kind of just making sure that we nurture them as much as we can, and we focus on the little guy as much as we do the big guy, because that's how you kind of increase the number of those big earners that you have in your economy.
This is absolutely the attitude that community builders need to have when cold starting a community. Yes, it might not scale when you have thousands or tens of thousands of users, but right now it's so important that everyone who takes an interest in your product or community is nurtured to become somebody who can ultimately be an advocate for your brand. And one of the best ways that Framer have found to help their members is just by being completely transparent.
There are certain things that I'm realizing that we as a team at Framer can do to help these people activate from the get-go, like letting them know, for example, what type of templates are most popular, what type of templates we have more demand than supply of, so they know what to build and what's going to be popular. For affiliates, it's really just a game of trying things, so helping people figure out how to get clicks. If they're getting clicks but they're not getting revenue, how could they maybe reword? How could they restructure?
Other companies are sat on information that could be valuable to their communities, but they don't want to share it because A, they don't understand how valuable it could be, or B, they're perhaps worried about sharing it because they think it might, offer some competitive disadvantages. I think this is really, really silly. As Kate mentioned, this is a quid quo pro relationship, or a symbiotic relationship. If your community wins, you win. So why would you not empower them with all the information that they need in order to succeed? Framer are now actually experiencing a slightly different problem to most communities, and that they're growing so fast, they're starting to have different worries.
I'd say we're going to break 10,000 members of the community today, which it's growing so fast. It's absolutely wild, and we really want to make sure that as it grows, our levels of engagement are also growing. I think people get so focused on having so many people in the community and just focusing on the number that is your members, whereas the most important thing is actually how they're using the community, what value they're getting from it. And for that, you want to look at engagement.
Of course, engagement is something communities should always be worried about. It's the bedrock of any community, having engaged members coming back week after week. And Framer solve this through something they call small wins. So these are the little things that the Framer community can get involved with before they perhaps have the full motivation because they're earning money through the platform. So they have competitions, they have staff picks, and they also have a circle community where people can post and get feedback and basically talk with other people to keep the motivation going while they're going through the journey of learning this tool and starting to monetize. Before we wrap up, I think there's one final lesson we can take from Framer, and that's the importance of putting the right people in your community team. Let's take a look at Kate's attitude when it comes to nurturing early community members who perhaps aren't yet massively contributing to the Framer community.
I became really, really passionate about that audience. Freelancers and agencies, I think they're an incredibly strong group of people who really have to put in a lot of graft and a lot of grit in order to be successful. And I really wanted to kind of keep serving that audience.
I've talked about this so many times, but honestly, the most important thing when it comes to building a community is just picking somebody that you really, really want to serve and building a community around them. And there's no point building out an AI community if you've got no interest in talking to AI developers. There's no point in starting a productivity community if you don't want to talk to a load of nerds all day. No offense to anyone who's in that productivity space. To be honest, I am as well. But yeah, the most important thing is just really that, because if you really deeply care about the person that you're serving, like Kate does, she deeply cares about freelancers and about agencies, then you're going to be able to serve those people because you're going to be interested in their problems. There's no hard and fast rules about communities and building them. You know, in this channel, we do try and distill some of the best practices, but a lot of it just has to do with deeply understanding your members and trying to solve problems for them. So I think that's one key bit of advice that we can take from Framer is, if you're building a community, do it for people that you love, or at least bring on people onto the team who love the people you're building a community for. So hopefully you found some help in that and you've got some good lessons that you can take to building your own communities. As always, press subscribe if you like that. And we have our free ebook. It's called the Community Gods Playbook, and it's got like over 100 pages now of deep dives into different communities that you can check out. So thanks a lot for that, and enjoy the rest of your day.